Delighted to introduce you today, Mr. Brian Flanagan. Brian, how are you, sir?
How are you doing?
Thank you for joining us again. You were the originator of the original Irish Refugee Council programme. You instigated it, you started it.
Yes, it all came from a week holiday, a week-long holiday in one of the Tenerife, I think it was. And I remember I could only find one English newspaper, the Telegraph, and I read on the front page, I can still see it in the right-hand corner, about refugees from Vietnam living in what were bunk beds, basically caged-in bunk beds. I discovered recently, coming back from Australia, that many people actually live in Hong Kong in such cramped conditions. However, as a result of that, when I came back, I spoke to the local factories, Fruit of the Loom and Clubman Omega, and said they agreed that they would be delighted to employ up to a certain number. I can't quite remember how many families, something like 10 families we were talking about at the time, and they were delighted to take them on. They were recruiting. And I brought in Lockie Kennedy, founder of Concern, and subsequently Frank Salmon, the Jesuit, a former colleague of mine. And we set up the council. I supplied the nice big boardroom table and chairs and took out a loan for it and so on. And off we went. But within a very short time we were swamped with extremely left-wing people. In other words, by left-wing I mean people who wanted other people to pay for everything without any undertaking really from themselves.
Costings or expenditure or where
didn't give a damn where it came from, basically, you know. So I had no time for that irresponsibility.
So it was effectively it was wrestled away from your control.
I was disgusted with it. Yeah, I mean, travelling to Dublin down to the Quays where the meeting, where the place we had released, where the meetings took place, was hard enough. But to be listening to people like that, you know, I mean, my idea was that it should be organised by, for instance, our town. We would be invited to take a certain number of refugees, and we would make the decision whether and how many we wanted them. And if and when they did come, we would be given the resources to help them settle in and make damn sure they accepted our way of life. They come here at our invitation. They don't come here to alter and change our way of going. I mean, I have met Muslim people, and they have no conception of the basic points of departure of our way of life. I mean, in Jerusalem, I had a long discussion with a university fellow whose university was closed down by the Jews before he could graduate, but he was intelligent and had English, and ended up doing something illegal in Jerusalem. I went and acquired illegally. It was like buying Semtex. I bought an Arabic version of the Psalms. They had never heard of God's love.
Wow.
They don't know about love and forgiveness.
Yeah, but we're over here now, and we're going to be enriched now with our understandings of the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him. we all have to have the vernacular. Our crucifixions have to be taken down from schools. Our whole ethos.
My dead body. They'll take no crucifixes down around here. That's for sure. I mean, this is nuts. It's nuts. It's barbaric. It's a man-made religion, the Muslim faith. It has some good things about it. I mean, Allah Akbar is very true, and we could do with a bit of that.
God be praised.
No, God is great. No, God is great.
You're right,
and the transcendence of God is a very forgotten reality. There is a transcendence about God. I mean, the transcendent is the opposite of the secular humanist. The secular humanist refers everything, brings everything down to its cash value in the here and now. Secular means of the age. Saeculum is age in Latin. Of the age. Now, so if you bring everything down to this world, you've cut off a great deal of what humans care about. We care about the transcendent.
My last guest, you would have been very much in tune with him, Dr. Steve Turley. He mentioned the act of not even as much as patriotism and love for one's country, but to put yourself up, to set yourself up to achieve more, or to be more than you are in the physical sense, but to aspire to do other great deeds for your society, for your tribe, for your community, you know, for the betterment of others. But at the moment, it feels to me very much like that we are kowtowing and acquiescing and effectively being robbed of our own identity. By the sheer scale of the numbers that's coming in, the demographic changes that are occurring in Ireland as we speak. Could you speak on any of that?
Yes, well, I remember hearing that the Premier of Turkey advised refugees heading to Europe, do not change your way of life. Do not change your outlook. Any contact I've had with Muslims, be they in Manchester supplying us with beds and mattresses, be they in Dublin, in Clonskee, being what I've read, I haven't that much contact with them, but anything I've read, they are different, and they don't really care two hoots about absorbing our what we have to offer.
Yeah.
They really it's incredible that people could be so oblivious to what Christianity has to offer, like such a thing as forgiveness. And you know, just last Sunday we had the parable of the Good Samaritan, right? You know, for Christians, you define yourself by service to other people.
Yeah. That's
what makes you happy. It's a bit of a paradox, don't ask me why, but in my experience, going out to help itinerants, as I did one Christmas, you know, it was the best Christmas I ever had. For some reason, you know, explain it. I don't know how you explain it, but that is the kind of being we are made for, that kind of activity. And it was only Christ who revealed the blooming thing to us properly. And to turn our back on that is nuts, and I will never accept it.
But do you think our government, why do you think our government is so complicit in bringing these extraordinary amount of numbers? Now they'll say we're duty bound to take 4,000 Syrian refugees. That's the quota that Germany had assigned for the overspill from Italy. So we're taking in these 4,000. Another 256 of just families have just been placed into Thurles, given automatic rights to housing, full social welfare benefit, and they're taking down. Now the mainstream media has said that they were worried that they didn't want their houses attacked or their way of lifestyle attacked. There's no mention of who asked us, who was giving us permission to bring these families in. What's happening around the country at the moment? I'm sure if you're aware, it's happening in Rossdowney, Abbey-Lux, different places where all of a sudden the government are announcing that they're taking over a local B&B establishment and they're just bringing in refugees. Now on inspection, these refugees are from Nigeria, they're from Pakistan, they're from Georgia, they're from Albania. I don't see where the conflict that they're supposed to be fleeing from, that they're able to come to this country and be given preferential treatment on the housing list, on medical cards, above a whole host of Irish people that are struggling to meet their ends meet. Two-wage earners are the new working poor, while the refugee class has become the more privileged class. How is that being allowed to happen?
I don't think 400 it would be too much for Ireland, but it's the choice of each community that's going to take a quota, not for the government by any means to decide. And this has my backup, and it's not easy to get my backup. I'll accept a lot of things, but I won't accept the change of what has taken 1,700 years to establish here.
How would you address that though? You know, what advice would you give to people that have concerns that they know the new refugees? And now don't forget, under the Migration Pact, economic migrants, asylum seekers, refugees, they're all classed as one. So it doesn't matter, you can only ascribe them through the government as refugees. How can people fight back against this? I mean, not fight back against the people that deserve to be helped and want to be helped, but the system is being fraudulently, on both sides, by the government, by the system, by the NGOs, and they played our own gone being politicians that are lining their pockets by giving their friends advice, buying hotels early, getting 2-year contracts for $1 million a year with further extensions without any consultation to the impact on the local community, such as Wexford, the one and only hotel, the Grand Hotel, totally given over to refugees. Now you can see that the town is struggling. Already businesses are saying their cash take intake is gone because people aren't coming. Tourists aren't coming. But how can communities stall it, question it? Would you have any inroad or any insight into that?
How do I prevent the dilution, the extermination, annihilation really is the word, of
replacement
of Ireland? Yeah, abort and replace, we've all heard that, yeah. That's what seems to be. But we've career politicians, they haven't, as far as I can see, they would have difficulty holding down a job, any real job, running a newspaper shop. A newsagent would push them beyond their limit. And these people are running a country. How do we change that? Well, to my mind, it's going to be very, very difficult, because the Irish people are as much responsible the people watching this, you are responsible, as am I, for failure to get the right candidates, finance them, and get them elected, and to care enough. Clientelism, so and so can pull a stunt for you, get you something that you're not entitled to, so you vote for him. That's not the way to run a country. You're going to destroy your country by doing such. So where do we go from here? Well, that's another question. It's up to the people of Ireland. You know what to do if you cared enough. Do you even care about your own children, what they're doing now with them in the schools? I don't know if the bill's passed yet. This basic sex education to teach 4-year-olds, from 4-year-olds up, teach them everything about sex, stuff that you wouldn't get in a pornographic film.
How far will the Irish family unit be pushed?
It's child abuse. It's child abuse. That's what it is.
It's actually, you're dead right. Like the destruction of the family unit is nearly complete. As in, it's taken the mother out of the home and put her to work. So it's a double tax take. Now I'm only talking economic sense. I'm not talking the sexual classes or the battle between the men. That never worked.
But they've also taken the leisure time that a woman needs to make a home and to make a place where everybody wants to come back to, where visitors like to call to and have a chat. That's been wiped out. What is it for? In order to push up the price of property for two wage earners competing for a property. It just pushes the price up.
And now we've handed our children over to daycare, so the state's effectively educating our children, and then that ties back into the curriculum that they're now starting to bring in. Teaching. I mean, how you could expect a child of 4 years of age to have any understanding? Why should they be even instructed in anything like that? Children should just be as children for as long as their eternity that they possibly can. So there's a lot of left-wing politics, and I don't believe it's the old guard left. I believe it's this new. Like I would say, Sinn Féin are very much in that vein, as in open border immigration, bring the refugees in.
It's incredible, like Sinn Féin ourselves alone. The theme,
ourselves alone.
Yeah. It's the very opposite. And now they want to be as British as a British can possibly be, and impose it on the people of Northern Ireland, whether they like it or not.
Jerry's. I mentioned it to you earlier on. Jerry tweets out a tweet. Now, on my last interview there, I came down on Antua because I think they're just Sinn Féin with a pro-life, but they're still open borders. They still want to perpetrate the same kind of nonsense, and I see the same education. They'd probably still push on that. But Jerry piped his head up today, and he said, and I want to get your reaction to Jerry's tweet here. Plight of refugees and migrants is as old as human experience. The people of our small island, as a result of colonisation, have a long history of forced migration. Consequently, most Irish people are sympathetic with those in similar situations. It's in our DNA. There's no war in Syria. The war is finished. There's no war in Georgia. There's no war in Pakistan that I'm aware of. And there's no war in all the other countries that have been pushed off. What would you say to Jerry on that?
Well, I'd say this to Jerry. Who gives you the right to lecture us on helping refugees? Buncrana gave the highest per capita contribution to the Ethiopia campaign in the Derry diocese back in the 80s. I remember it very well for various reasons. And Derry was the highest in Ireland. So we know what we're talking about when it comes to helping people, a third world and so on. So we will help them. But who gives you the right to dictate to us how we should do it, to what extent we should do it? You respect us, and we will respect you in this discussion as to what we will do for refugees. You do not dictate to us nor threaten our way of life, for at rock bottom is an ideological preoccupation of yours. You remind me of the famous statement, I think it's by Stalin, when he was asked, when the struggle's over, will it all have been worthwhile? He says, if there's only 2 people left alive when it's over, as long as they're both communist, that'll be okay. So, that's the ideological rationalist, extreme rationalist point of view. I'm a realist. My background, I could have, as a young man, I've done medicine. I preferred to do philosophy. It's been my interest from the age of 8. My father was a bit of a debater in Northern Ireland. And in fact, he was banned from going into Derry by the IRA because they didn't like what he was saying in the pubs in Buncrana here, He had a very sharp tongue, much sharper than mine, a great debater. However, what I want to say about this huge question of abortion now, and really the abortion question comes down to an ontological question. And ontology is the science of being. Epistemology is the science of knowledge. Two parts of metaphysics. These are not irrelevant to everyday life, because really what metaphysics is concerned about is the value of and dignity of what a human being is, really. And that is a delicate question, hugely, can't be, there's nothing more important really than that, and yet it has been distorted. The average person's concept of what the dignity of a human being, I don't think you'd meet many people who could give you what would be considered a true estimate of the value of a human being. The value of a human being, it comes down to resting in being, was a phrase Des Connell used to repeat again and again in the lectures, as opposed to the existentialists. You've heard of Jean-Paul Sartre and all the famous Camus and all the various Merleau-Ponty and all these French, a lot of them and German philosophers, existentialists. They emphasised existence and angst, the angst of constantly having to do things, because really for them we don't have any whatness, or the human being is free, and they have the apotheosis of freedom now. Freedom is the God. We are free, and we're so free now in the existentialist view that we can choose. A man can choose to be a woman can choose to be a man. You can, as long as you take the consequences, you can do whatever you want to do. Now that is not necessarily the case, as it says in the song. It ain't necessarily so. And of course it's not. If a hedgehog wants to fly, it ain't
gonna have him.
He's going to be in trouble. We are human beings, and we are orientated to the other, as we said earlier. We're social animals, and there's a huge, complicated set of relationships which we must abide by, and not least with our Creator. And all of this is common sense. It's not in the realm of religion at all. Abort and replace. They seem to be apparatchiks. They seem to be. They seem to have been somehow or other taken under the wing of some very coherent foreign influence. Mm-hmm. Whether it's the Masons, Masonic Lodge. They have 2 meetings a week, they told me once, in that big
Clintons, probably part of the same thing.
Yeah, whether it's they or the secular humanists. There's a very important organisation, the secular humanists of Europe and the secular humanists of Ireland. They are very explicit in their objectives, some of which they've achieved already. Very wealthy are living off money that they have. They pay people to manage their wealth. They're controlling more and more as a percentage of the wealth. Fewer and fewer own more and more as a percentage of the wealth of the world, and they are living off the currency, as it were. And it's wrong. It's in its essence. It's wrong. It is most wrong for them, because they are endangering their eternal salvation with that kind of usury, as you call it. It's really wrong. That we have given a great deal, and will continue to do so, but not at the cost of who we are and what we are. That's nuts. And anyone who can't stand up for that, they
deserve everything they're going to get.
Well, nobody deserves what's coming down the track. It's so terrible.